Welcome to our second class in bioethics. First, I'd like to remind you that content that I want you to look at will be available in two formats. One, as classic PowerPoints that you can download the files and look at individual slides. And the second is as audio classes as you are observing currently. Bioethics is a special, narrow area of ethics in general. Bioethics looks at questions about what is right or wrong in areas of human health, animal care, animal rights, the environment, and agriculture. To be able to undertake a study of bioethical questions, we need to have some background in the area of ethics. Ethics is a field of philosophy that looks at questions of what is right or wrong, good or bad. There are many areas of ethics, and there are several branches of ethics that look at broad questions or areas. This includes metaethics, normative ethics, applied ethics, and descriptive ethics, among others. And today what I'd like to do is to take a look at several of these and to give you a little bit of background about what each is about and how we use what is learned in these areas to address bioethical dilemmas. Metaethics is the branch of ethics that centers on answering the very basic questions. What do we mean by the term good? What do we mean by autonomy, about paternalism? And that is, how do we define our terms so that we agree upon what we're talking about? Metaethic also looks at the arguments that can be made to justify ideas. That is there a common morality? What are the properties of goodness? How would we recognize good action versus bad action when we see it? That is, how can we know if something is good or bad? So, metaethics deals with the broadest ideas, and that is the most important basic nature of what we're talking about. This semester, as part of our class, I will many times use cartoons to help to make a point. And one cartoon that I really like is a series that appeared in newspapers in the 1980s and 1990s. It was called Calvin and Hobbes. It's named after two very well-known philosophers from the Age of Reason. And so in the first cartoon, we see a discussion at a metaethical level about New Year's resolutions. And what do we mean by the terms of values? And are values relative? Very basic questions that we associate with metaethics. Right? It is looking at, again, can we define our terms? Can we make judgments and get an idea of the notion of which properties allow us to determine the validity or truth of ideas? Normative ethics is the next level, and it gets a little bit more into the nitty-gritty. We will use normative ethics in looking at many bioethical questions this semester. Normative ethics addresses general principles, or that is, ideas or theories of how we determine what is right or wrong. It sets principles that we will refer back to inform our decisions, to make judgments. There are many normative ethical theories that are used. There are deontological, consequentialist, virtue ethics, feminist ethics, natural rights, absolutism, and so these are all different general principles. A deontological model of bioethics would be that we can determine what is good, what is not good. Immanuel Kant would say, using our reason, we can determine that it is immoral to tell lies. If we don't know when people are telling the truth, that is, anyone may lie to us, then we cannot have a society in which we work and cooperate together, because we can never know when to trust someone. So from a deontological point of view, lying is wrong. And lying is wrong in all circumstances. And we have a duty not to lie. We don't worry about the outcomes in our truth-telling. Consequentialism, in contrast, is a principle that what is good benefits the most people. It does the good for the most people. And therefore what we look at is the outcome. If we know that someone is going to do harm to someone else, then we might tell a lie about knowing where they're at, because there would be a greater good, more benefit in lying, in that harm would not happen to people. So normative ethics are general principles that people use to look at specific cases. It is when we look at specific cases that we get into applied ethics. Applied ethics is that area of ethics in which people look at specific cases and determine what and how someone should act. It looks at individual moral decisions. Should I pull the plug on Aunt Sally? Should Mary have an abortion of an unwanted fetus? So it looks at specific situations using different normative theories to lead to a judgment in which something is done. An example would be seen in the cartoon here, where the individual sees a train coming down the track. He's at the switch. He can throw the switch or do nothing. He could throw the switch so that the train would be diverted and only kill one person. He could throw the switch and 5 people would be killed. Or he could do nothing, and whichever way the switch is currently set, then the outcome would be beyond his control. What should this person do? Most, if they use a utilitarianism point of view, would have the man throw the switch to kill only one person. since it is obvious that something must be done and that either outcome will lead to the death of individuals, but that we would minimize the harm by throwing the switch to kill one person. If one used a deontological approach, this man would do nothing because it is wrong to kill. And by actively throwing a switch, this man will kill people. So even though there can be a bad outcome, this person has a duty not to actively lead to death. Notice how different normative systems may lead to different outcomes when we look at applied ethics. In this cartoon, Calvin is trying to decide, should he cheat on a test or not? And he goes back and forth in his decision. Hobbes asks, well, what did you do? And Calvin says, nothing, I ran out of time. I had to turn in a blank paper. This shows you how difficult dilemmas may be. Descriptive ethics is a new area of ethics in which people do empirical research. And so they try to determine what different people would do and what they believe in certain circumstances. In many cases, they will survey a large number of people and ask, what would you do in this situation? What do you think are the reasons that you would do this? In our pluralistic society, where we have such divergent views, and in a world where there are so many different ethical systems, this type of work is becoming more useful as we try to get an idea of what society as a whole believes. So when we take a look at these levels, and we go, what is right? Meta-ethics would ask the question, what does right even mean? What are its properties? How do we know what it is? A normative perspective of the ethics would ask, well, how should people act? What are the principles that they should base their actions on? Applied ethics would ask, how do we take that moral knowledge and put it into practice? What is the specific action we take to do right? And finally, descriptive ethics would survey many people to see the diversity of views about what is right.